Mrs. Hode has been into town for the groceries. But silly Mrs. Hode has forgotten the salt. She's got to go back. And that may take a while because the nearest shop is 281 miles away.
Everything I can see from here, and a whole lot more besides, is one farm. It covers 13,000 square kilometres. That's the same size as Devon, Cornwall, Dorset and Avon. One farm. And when you get to the far end of it, there's another farm which is even bigger, and then another, and then another. And it's the same story in every direction for 1,000 miles. If I were to drive from here to the nearest big city, Alice Springs, it would take 18 hours. For a European, this is just unbelievable.
The Australian outback is about the same size as mainland America, but it has the population of Leeds. To get anywhere, you have to fly. Cars? Well, they're just for fun. Here, just outside Alice Springs, they've turned a network of old tracks into a variety of race circuits. Let's face it, no one's going to complain, are they?
It's great fun. It's the guys spend a fair bit of time on the cars and that sort of thing, and they come out here, get rid of a lot of aggression that we build up in town.
In town?
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't call this town.
It's a stressful city. Yeah. Hey, it's 25,000 people. It's got to be stressful. Hey, living in the middle of Australia is stressful, trust me. You make your own sport, your own entertainment. You have to. There's nothing else here.
They're brilliant cars with 36 inches of suspension travel and highly tuned Toyota engines. They may look like upscaled radio-controlled toys, but they're as hard as Mad Max.
How long have you got out here then if you're lost without water?
I'd say 30 hours at the maximum in the summertime.
Which is now?
Which is now, yeah.
How far is it from where we're standing now, which is by your station, to the nearest pub?
Our closest pub is, which is all that is there is a hotel, is Top Springs, 150 kilometres from here.
So you can't just pop out in the evening for a drink?
Not really, no. It's a bit far.
Now, what about the guys that come up here to muster the cattle? I mean, the young, fit, triangular, torsoed, bronzed guys. I mean, I haven't seen too many loose, single women kicking around anywhere.
No. What happens is usually we do have a few females. We usually like to have some, there's female domestics or what have you, providing they're not married, and they usually fall in love very quickly.
So there's a bit of a dating agency out
here. Yes.
Well,
it's not quite the romantic idea that a lot of the girls have when they come.
Is it enormous by Australian standards, this one?
Well, I think it's about the second biggest in the Northern Territory anyway. So, yes, it is big.
How many cows are there?
Well, we've just got a shade over 40,000 at the present time.
40,000?
Like I said, cars here are useless. You want to round up the cattle, you call in the Airborne Cowboys. These guys are just plain mad.
You, cow! You can run, but you can't hide! So you wanna be a cowboy? Well, you know it's more than just the ride. You gotta know the real thing if you're gonna know the other side. Ain't nobody riding shotgun
They can make a Robinson helicopter dance everything from rock and roll to the tango. And when needs must, they'll drop right down and physically push an errant cow back into line. Things were not always quite so high-tech. This old wreck is one of the few survivors from the early pioneering days. It's a bit beaten up now, but strangely, its owner was more concerned about how he looked.
Don't only stand on a box or anything, do I? Look bloody short here. Look like Charlie Drake.
Amazingly, this old car is a Rolls-Royce. So what were they doing bringing status symbols out here?
Didn't make any difference when you go 10 miles out in the sticks. No one sees it anyway, so as long as you had plenty of oomph under the bonnet, it was the main thing. For getting over sandhills, let the back tyres down about 10 pounds and you could just tackle about any sandhill with it.
So in other words, they were looking for a Rolls-Royce because it's the toughest car you could get your hands on, convert it into Australian spec, and that was the ideal thing, and sod the prestige.
Well, more or less, yeah. Yeah, it was mainly practicality point of view. It was not only with Rolls-Royce, but very numerous other cars, Model Ts, Chevs. To get up from Adelaide, you didn't even consider coming to Central Australia unless you took the back off, put the wooden tray on the back, loaded up as much gear, food, water and everything else as you possibly could, then head up that 1,600 kilometre trip.
What's with the light and the gun racks and things on it?
In the late 40s, Eddie Connellan started tours here in a place called Wild Man River in the Northern Territory. He used to fly up people from Alice Springs, and for 3 and 6 a day you could croc shoot or buffalo shoot. And this was the vehicle that was used for taking the people out on the back of the tray there. The light, of course, was obviously for crocodile shooting, and you have a rifle rack on the side here for a couple of 303s. There's an Aspana Squeezer I've seen up here as well. That had a Perkins diesel in it, and that also was used for bush trips.
So it really was a question of you had to buy the toughest, and if it was a Rolls-Royce, well, what the hell?
In the first part, I would say, yeah, before Land Rovers and Toyotas dominated the territory, yeah.
Certainly, camels are notoriously unimpressed by flash cars. If you want to catch one, you need 2 things: 4-wheel drive and a lobotomy.
This is the kind of bush, I mean it, but absolutely no man has been before. We're 100 miles from Alice Springs here. We know what it does to people when you live out here. Tuck your head. Whoa, whoa. You keep saying, Benzinis, Benzinis. Now bent. Oh, skiing practice coming in here. What happens when we catch the camel? Well, the plan is, Gun here, Denmark's only camel catcher, is gonna, whoa, hold on. There's that tree. He's gonna get on the running board and literally, they call it bulldogging. He's just gonna leap off the vehicle and grab it around its neck and wrestle it to the ground. Well,
the first attempt was a failure, perhaps because it had been a 2-hour chase, during which time we'd ripped through the bush at up to 80 miles an hour, having our hands and faces torn apart by passing trees. The second attempt was also a failure, but Gunn had had enough of being battered to death in the Land Cruiser. He was going to take on Mr. Camel, man to man.
is this a good one, or is it a...
Yeah, it's a good little bull.
Yeah?
Not a bad-looking little bull.
He's a tough old bird, isn't he? But again, you did very well. And you know when they say people are supposed to look like their dogs? Ah. You think there's... I don't know, I think he's grown to look a bit like a cow. Exactly. Look, it's gone right, they've got lots of food and everything. There's no veal protesters where you're going. He'll be all right.
You know what the Outback is? It's a giant adventure playground. You can have some serious fun out here. 3,700 feet down, there are machines which have never and will never see the light of day. In one mine there are 300 miles of roads, and that means the only way to get about is in a car. They're used for getting men, machinery and explosives to the face, and then getting the hell out as fast as their governed engines and doctored gearboxes will allow. Not surprisingly, they don't last very long.
A big part of it's driver abuse. They just get in there, kill the vehicles, I've got to fix them up again, then they're off again. Nickel's another thing, just the corrosion. It eats away absolutely everything it touches without the vehicles being washed every day. I've got 5 Land Cruisers and 2 Land Rovers. The Land Rovers, the biggest trouble we have with them, they keep breaking in half. The suspension keeps falling out, everything keeps falling out on them. The nickel seems to eat everything away. The Land Rovers, they've been down here just on 2 years now. I think they've already spent over $100,000 on one of them. Not looking at it, you wouldn't think so.
It is in fact a Toyota, though, that holds the record for the shortest lifespan down here.
The lowest I've ever seen is 3 hours. It was driven underground, parked in a bay and then run over by a 50-tonne truck.
On average, they spend £4,000 a month keeping each car going. But that's okay, because this area is well known as the richest square mile in the world. Miners can earn £75,000 a year, and that brings them flocking from all over the planet. And that in turn makes the town of Kalgoorlie the world epicentre of pecks and pints. Outside in the main square, passers-by are kept up to date with international gold prices. And on TV there are commercials for hirsute, blokey things like water pumps and diggers.
Power and pride. Westrac is working by its side.
Westrac, a powerful team.
With adverts as bad as that on TV, it's small wonder that people go out more here. And because they go out, there's more of a community spirit. And because there's more of a community spirit, things get done. Especially when there's stuff like that lying around all over town. And things needed to be done because until a few years ago, Kalgoorlie was an industrial-sized time bomb.
There's something like about 30, 40 containers of cyanide moving through that street every day, in conjunction with all the other cocktails. If you had an LP gas truck hit an explosive truck, I wouldn't know what it'd do. Flatten the whole area.
Without permission, the townsfolk built themselves a bypass.
Oh, we did it in 3 days. But in fairness, it wasn't sealed in that time, but it was a very serviceable, fully formed, trafficable road for heavy vehicles.
And how did you get rid of officialdom?
Oh, I think Doug, he spoke to a few and suggested maybe they get out of town for the weekend.
And you kept it all secret?
Yeah, yes. Very secret, you had to.
Why is that?
Because we thought we would have been stopped by the local authorities, which we would have been stopped by the local authorities.
This is Newbury in reverse. The whole town got involved. It's Challenge Annika gone mad.
I mean, there was a lot of support and people turned up with all sorts of gear and food and drinks, and it was a marvellous event.
And it's brought the town together?
There's no question of it. In fact, it's still talked about when there's something that needs to be done at the council or in one of the local communities where somebody's standing on the hose, as we say here in Australia. They say, well, we better get the rebel road builders in, they'll sort it out. It's become almost part of the local idiom. Get the rebel road builders, they'll sort it out.
Every miner, every farmer, every housewife, every single person we've met in the Australian outback drives a Toyota. It may not have the Land Rover's twin airbag system, but what are you going to hit out here? It doesn't have a V8 engine either, but so what? It's reliable, and frankly, nothing else matters.
I'm a huge fan of the Discovery, but 3 of the 4 that we've been using out here have been showing signs of senile dementia. One turned his hazard warning lights on, and then, even when we offered it money, wouldn't turn them off again. Another one kept refusing to start. It's such a shame, because they're such good cars. They're just not built well enough to handle life out here.
Land Rover's market share has recently crept back up to 17%, but that's almost entirely due to their popularity in the cities.
If I lived in Australia, I wouldn't drive a Land Rover. And one of the reasons is, I wouldn't drive anything at all.
In the massive Northern Territories, there are no speed limits. What's the point of paying a policeman to sit around in 140-degree heat being eaten by spiders, just in case the one car he sees all week is going too fast?
The novelty, though, of being allowed to do 130, 140 miles an hour wears off after about 3 minutes, just as you pass a sign saying Adelaide, 1,950 kilometres. Driving in Australia is so boring that you long for a boingy animal to bounce out into the road in front of you and do something interesting. Yesterday I considered having a crash just for something to do. I tell you, driving it... What? Jeez! What the hell was that?
What this is a road train. Australia's answer to Jean-Claude Van Damme. It has a turbocharged 19,000cc engine. It can do 100 miles an hour. It costs £250,000. It is 150 feet long. Filling it up will set you back £1,000. Leviathan? Oh no, it's way bigger than that. You want more statistics? Okay, it does 1.3 miles to the gallon. Each cylinder is 3.1 litres, and its stopping distance is measured in light years. Australia has always had a love affair with the truck, so it's only right and proper that an Australian should have been the one to take the concept to the limits of what's possible.
What gave you the idea to build a road train?
I took a load of young stud bulls out to a property about 200 miles out, and they were so pleased with the results. A chap by the name of Ted Dixon, he said, why can't you build a truck that'll carry 100 head instead of just 20? I said, well, I suppose I could, but I haven't got that sort of money. He said, well, there's a couple £1,000 here any time you want it.
And this is what you built?
Yes.
How long did it take?
About 2 years. It took about 6 months for each trailer to build.
The modern trucks that one gets these days, the Max and the Canvas, have got sort of bunk beds and
air conditioning,
yeah.
Hot and cold women.
It's all mod cons then, really?
Oh, yes, all mod cons then.
You must feel quite proud these days as you're going around Australia and seeing countless road trains now.
Yes, it's quite a lift to the ego, particularly when I used to be ridiculed about even attempting such a thing.
Without road trains, Northern Australia would starve. Normal trains can get from Adelaide to Alice Springs, but then the tracks stop and all the containers have to go the rest of the way by road. First, though, they've got to get out of Alice Springs.
How on earth do you drive something this enormous through a town?
Well, you sort of try and keep your wits to you a bit and keep your eyes out for other traffic and make sure they don't get on the inside of you to whichever direction you're turning, because you'll run over them. And up here we're going to turn at these set of lights and we'll be turning left. Sometimes you sort of have to hog the wrong lane a bit, but people understand or they soon get the message. You can see here I'm going right out wide to my right, and look at that, plenty of room.
Yeah. So we made it.
Yeah.
Well, it's as manoeuvrable as a sports car. So these roundabouts have got special bits on them for road trains, have they?
Yes.
Is that why they're like this?
Yep.
To let the road trains drive across the middle of them?
To allow us here to get through them.
On the massive journeys, many drivers use drugs to stay alert. But the guys at Tanami Transport are a bit more responsible.
When you're out on the road, how do you just not fall asleep?
You do get tired, and I think that's where a lot of willpower comes into it. When the time does come when you can't concentrate enough, you just pull over for a while and have an hour off in the bunk. Or
what about some guys? They read, don't they?
Oh, well, not so much with us, but you hear of the freight guys that haul freight from here. A lot of them read.
So they just drive along with a good book?
Not always, but just at times, yeah.
There's an awful lot of wildlife in outback Australia, yeah?
Oh, yes. You have birds, kangaroos.
You must spend your entire life mowing them down.
Some nights you tend to hit many of them. Sometimes maybe up to 20 a night or something like that.
What happens to them?
Well...
They burst, I presume.
A lot of them do, and make a terrible mess on the vehicle.
What about emus? You ever hit one?
Yeah, oh yes, we've hit one, yeah. And one that I hit was full of worms.
Oh, no.
I'm not the only truck on the road. There's probably another 20 or 30 over the whole road, so you can imagine that it does add up to a lot of bodies on the road over each night.
The good thing, though, is that they're very unlikely to run over a person. Amazing, isn't it, that the most notable piece of television to emerge from this wilderness continent is a programme called Neighbours.